Crank It Up viewers, I'm Berryl, the host of this week's Unexpected Party episode. You may have seen me around the Smash Up Discord and Reddit forums, where I'm currently an active member. I've loved Smash Up from the first time I played, and the communities around the game are amazing, so the opportunity to be featured on this channel is truly incredible. The unexpected party that we're going to be crashing today is the Polynesian Voyagers and the Killer Plants. At first glance, it doesn't seem like these two factions should mesh well together at all. The Voyagers want to spread out onto as many bases as possible and build their rarer minions, i.e. the Wayfinders, up to a level where they can win bases. The Plants, on the other hand, are a support faction who focus on the more common minions, being able to pull Power 3s out of the deck with Sprouts and Power 2s with Venus Mantrap. The Voyagers have no Power 2s to speak of, and the 7 Power 3s they do have don't seem like the best Sprout targets at first glance. The Voyagers also don't have many ways to manipulate Overgrowth, the Plant's most powerful and synergistic card, nor do they seem to even want it at first glance. After all, the whole point of Overgrowth is to win a base with as few resources as possible, and the Voyagers seem apt to overspend on it. However, let's examine this combination a little more closely. The Voyagers can't use Overgrowth on more than one base, but they can make sure that that one base really counts. How? By digging for the right base, of course. The Voyagers have the ability to play lots of extra bases with Volcanic Uprising and Maui, and if more bases are available to play on, you're more likely to see a juicy 5 VP base to use Overgrowth on. One of the best parts about this is that you don't even need to commit any plays to winning the base. If you have one of the many ways Voyagers can move minions around, Maui, Growth of the Tribes, Ocean Tattoo, or even Volcanic Uprising in a pinch, you don't have to commit any minion plays to the Overgrowth base, which the Plants usually have to do with some of their other good partners, such as Aliens or Ancient Incas. This flexibility allows you to continue developing your board position, even as you're scoring a base, committing the right amount of resources to secure first on that base. Another thing this combo does well is using cards in interesting and powerful ways. Ideally with the Plants, you have at least one Water Lily out the entire game. This is generally pretty easy to do, since you have 3 copies and plenty of Sprouts to retrieve them. However, those lilies can sometimes sit at a base and do nothing for the majority of the game other than draw you cards, and those other lilies and the cards you draw can clog your hand if you're waiting for the one in play to get out of the way. However, the Voyagers have ways of leveraging the lilies that allows them to both perform their engine function and help with base breaking. If you play a Shark Tattoo on a Water Lily and then leave that base alone for a couple of turns, that Water Lily is going to quickly become 6 or 7 power that you can use, either to break the Water Lily's base, or by sending it to a different one with one of the aforementioned movement options. Now you have an actual target for Shark Tattoo, since you generally want to save Sun Tattoos for Wayfinders and Ocean Tattoo for other targets, and suddenly the Plant minions, which can have problems where you don't want to break bases with any of them, have a way to score bases other than with Overgrowth. Another card that gains a new, albeit somewhat situational use is Blossom. Jim has talked in several videos about the Blossom paradox, where making a card's ceiling higher can sometimes make it worse because you try to save it for the perfect moment. However, with this combo, you don't need to worry about waiting to burst with it on the perfect turn. It instead serves as a setup and suppression card that can cripple the right opponent faction. With this play, you're going to want to save your Moai until you draw Blossom and one of your Voyager payoff cards, Unity or Knowledge of the Tribes. Then, you can play Blossom to play 3 of those Moai on bases where you don't have any minions yet. Then, on later turns, you can either draw a whole host of cards using Knowledge of the Tribes, or pump up your power on a base with Unity of the Tribes to break it. This also completely shuts down any movement factions. Although you're adding more bases for those actions to move to, you can completely wall off 4 of them from their access, and without extra support, the Voyagers can only add 3 more for a total of 6 bases in 2-player. This means that, even if you had already played both Volcanic Uprising and Maui, those movement factions, such as Mounties, Ultimates, Tornadoes, even Pirates or Steampunks, would get completely shut down, with only 2 bases to move between. While it might seem that just playing the 3 Moai on one base to break it, like a regular Blossom play, might be better, consider that this way you get to keep your minions on the field and use them later, choking opponent movement and supplying an avenue for easy second place finishes later. The last major interaction I'm going to talk about is how to use Sun Tattoo with this combo. Sun Tattoo is a card that I've found usually gets used to save a pumped up Wayfinder, breaking a base in your turn, then playing Sun Tat to keep the Wayfinder on the field. Sometimes if you set up well, you can score a second base right then and there. Sometimes though, the Wayfinder stays out, and that's at least 7 to 8 power you're just leaving on the field for your opponent to use against you, and you can't save the Wayfinder a second time. Instead, try the following. If you have a Wayfinder with a couple counters on it, and Overgrowth on a base, move your Wayfinder there and play a Tiki as your minion. After the Overgrowth base scores, which should be worth at least 4 VP, play both Sun Tattoos on your minions there, and move them to a base where your opponent has nothing. Maybe you have a Shark-Tatted Water Lily that's been sitting there for 1 or 2 turns. If your Wayfinder had just 2 counters on it when Overgrowth broke, you've now just sent a minimum of 15 power to a base of your choice. And again, if you had a Lily growing there for a few turns, you can easily break a base of breakpoint 20 or higher, giving you 7 or 8 VP on the turn and leaving a Wayfinder to spare. You can use this play to pull ahead in the mid-game or to close out the game for the win, but always keep it in mind when playing this combo. There are also a collection of other smaller interactions this combo has that aren't big or flashy, but certainly help pull the team together. You have extra minion plays with Instago to get your important minions out quickly. Budding can grab a Wayfinder for you once you draw the first one. This helps make sure you never run out of steam after a big play. Even though Venus Mantrap can only grab Sprouts, which in turn are only really able to grab Water Lilies or Tikis, you can easily get around the local restriction using Ocean Tattoo or Maui, and its high printed power is helpful for winning a base. With both Sun Tattoos reserved for a big play, Ocean Tattoo can go on your second Wayfinder to both get around the Wayfinder's requirement of having no minions on its destination base, and to need to save a Sun Tattoo for it. Finally, Deep Roots and Entangled become very important defensive cards, providing you with a sort of home base where your minions are invulnerable to the most worrisome forms of antagonism. However, this pair is not without its weaknesses, and they are significant ones. Although your minions will generally be safe from destruction due to their high power, other forms of removal, such as returning to the hand or shuffling into the deck, will be devastating when it not only ruins your power counter investments, but also discards any actions on your minions. Additionally, your Sprouts will be prime targets for destruction, since if your opponent can only destroy low power minions, they're going to be the only available targets. If you can't get your Water Lilies in play early because your Sprouts are getting destroyed, you're going to have serious consistency issues. The other major weakness of this pairing is that they have 0 ways to recur cards from the discard pile. Once something goes there, you have no way to get it back except to reshuffle your deck, and if you're reshuffling your deck, it means the game is almost over, and you're not going to be able to use the lost cards anyways. This means if that your opponent can send high power minions to the discard, it may be worse than returning or shuffling. You also have little capability of kicking an opponent off of the base if you want to solo it, as your only means of destroying someone is Choking Vines, which takes a whole turn to trigger, and can easily be taken care of with Disenchant or similar action. Beware of overpaying for first place, because it can happen easily, and if you don't spend your resources carefully, you'll peter out at the end with no minions in your hand or in play. This is also a somewhat slow team, and though you have ways of slowing down swarm combos, if you can't create time to develop your investments, you won't be able to pull ahead. It's often said that Smash Up is a game about efficiency, and usually when people say this, they mean that using the right amount of resources for each base, and knowing when to go for the big solo score, and when to catch an easy second place. This is a great definition of the word in this game. However, with this combo, it also means making everything you play count. You have 3 Water Lilies, 2 Wayfinders, and 2 Sun Tattoos, and when you play these guys, you're leveraging all of them. This combo has to be played thoughtfully, always thinking ahead to the big plays and thinking about what your opponent can do. However, if you can play them, they're an absolute blast to play. These 2 factions have been 2 of my favorites ever since I got their sets, and I think once you use them together, you might start to agree. Next time you're looking for a new time to try out, I highly recommend you check out the Polynesian Voyagers and the Killer Plants.